what happens sometimes, and people feel like God's words are not true, or the will of God is not real. Sometimes the will of God can decide not to will with God's will. The will of God can decide to change. God does not change. If God says a thing, He stays with it, He sticks with it. Whatever God says is still valid, in as much as the two parties involved in that instructions still aligns with God's purpose, and they can hear well. They can hear what God is saying well. They still align with God, but the instructions of God does not change. But where the instruction changes and people think it's God that changed is when one of the parties decide to walk away from God, and the person no longer wants to do the will of God. At this point, most people think that, yeah, God actually, no, the person changed. The person decided not to go the way of God again. And of course, I've said this here before, that if a person decides not to go the way of God, God cannot be stranded. He moves ahead. But at that point, you need to go back to God and hear the next instruction God is giving you. You need to go back to God and update the level of the instruction you had from God. So let me continue this. Hello, guys. Welcome to question and answer for today. But on today's segment, we're not having question and answer. So today's segment, we're going to be taking life issues, life scenarios, case studies of events that happens, and we're going to be sharing what you think can be done or what you think went wrong. We're going to be sharing advice. We're going to be rubbing minds together in the comment section while I share this experience. So please, let's engage this. Very, very urgent. Like, we need urgent advice from you people right now. Thank you. Okay, so there was this lady at a very young age. Her parents, she came from a dysfunctional home. Yes, in her words, she said she came from a dysfunctional home where her father has the final say. Whatever the mother say doesn't matter, and it was not a home that anyone could say. A child growing up in the home knows that, okay, everything is wrong, like nothing is well in this home. So really trying, she continued living there. So it got to a time where they had to relocate. The father built a house in a site, and it was quite far from where they lived, and she was just in JS1 at 8 or 9, if I'm not mistaken. She was just in JS1, and the parents had to go. So the father made an order that, okay, since there's a mission house, a church house, they let her stay in the church house while they relocate, since the school is closed, instead of just changing school. So the mother had no choice than to leave the girl there, thinking that the church is a safe place, mission house, that's the best place they could leave her to be. So they left. While she was in the mission house for several years throughout her secondary school, she was being molested. Like, she was being molested. At this point, she didn't know that was what molestation was. She didn't know, because she felt it was a normal way of life. She thought people were playing with her. She thought it was just, I don't know. She just felt like, okay, she didn't know that that was what it was called, to be molested. So she grew up, when she finished, she went for A level. As at that time she went for A level, she met with Christ, and she encountered Christ. But her admission was not yet on. So she began to serve God. She had a training in sign language. So she used that sign language to preach in buses, to preach in places. So God really helped her in that line of using her gift for God. So God so good, the following year, she gained admission into school, and she was studying anatomy. Yes. So studying anatomy, first year, second year, she began to see that, oh, so what happened to me in secondary school was actually molestation. So I was actually molested, and several people, different kind of thing happened to her. But in her own, she didn't know what to call it. So that was when she knew that, oh, she was really molested. So life went on and on for her like that. So she got to a part in her walk with God when she was in 300 level. God began to reveal a brother to her, and she was praying about it. God so good. This brother happened to be in medicine, and anatomy and medicine, they are quite related. So this brother came, he was already done with school. While she was already in 400 level, God gave her confirmations, and this brother came and also said his own confirmations, and they discussed it, and they both agreed. So she had an extra year. So she was to come back. The brother was already, like, he was done. So he was like a mentor. He was mentoring some persons while he was also doing maybe assistant lecturers or something. I can't remember, but brother was present in the school, having some people as mentees under him. So in the process, her cousin was also in the school. That they've started growing, while she was in 400 level, they met, they both exchanged convictions in this relationship thing. Things was going well. They were both having, they were already discussing. In fact, she told her spiritual leader. Her spiritual leader said, oh, that's great, but you people need to set boundaries so that you don't fall into sin. All of this kept going on, and things was fine. Times God will show her revelation. She has the gift. God shows her revelation. They discuss, they pray over it, and God was really evident according to her in the relationship. Fast forward to not long after this brother started counseling, mentorship, he discovered that a cousin went to the brother and said God revealed the brother to her, that the brother is going to be a husband, that you should pray about it. And meanwhile, this girl was one of the people she was mentoring. This cousin was one of the people the guy, which is the doctor, was actually mentoring. So he began to misbehave to this lady, began to misbehave to her, and at a point when the girl was already done with school, when she was already done with school, the guy came up boldly and said, at this point, we can't continue this relationship. And the girl was like, what about our convictions? What about things that we share together? What about other things? How will you just say cut like that? I don't understand. Now, the girl was battered, was broken. She felt really bad. She felt like, could God be lying? What happened and all of it? At this point, I want to say this before I continue. This is what happens sometimes, and people feel like God's words are not true, or the will of God is not real. Sometimes the will of God can decide not to will with God's will. The will of God can decide to change. God does not change. If God says a thing, He stays with it, He sticks with it. Whatever God says is still valid, in as much as the two parties involved in that instructions still aligns with God's purpose, and they can hear well. They can hear what God is saying well. They still align with God, but the instructions of God does not change. But where the instruction change, where the instruction changes and people think it's God that changed, is when one of the parties decide to walk away from God and the person no longer wants to do the will of God. At this point, most people think that, God actually, no, the person changed. The person decided not to go the way of God again. And of course, I've said this here before, that if a person decides not to go the way of God, God cannot be stranded. He moves ahead. But at that point, you need to go back to God and hear the next instruction God is giving you. You need to go back to God and update the level of the instruction you had from God. So let me continue the story. So this guy left. Immediately this guy left, and she was battered, she was broken. She felt like, okay, this was not that, it was not. So out of the frustration, one of her classmates who has been eyeing her before she gave in to this guy, the guy randomly came in at that time into her life and said, hey, how are you? What's this? So the guy was there consoling her, comforting her. So she felt like, okay, why can't I go with this person? So within a year, she went with this guy. Both of them were in a relationship, so they met. The lady got pregnant, and she was like, out of wedlock. She felt broken. She felt like, okay, that she has sinned against God and all of it like that. But at that point, it was already late because she was pregnant. Now, in the process of having to go back and forth, the pregnancy came down. At that point, she was like, okay, let her pick up her life again and start. So at this time, she was settled that she wanted to go ahead with this guy. She was already, she concluded that, okay, she wanted to go ahead with this guy. She started telling her parents about who this guy was and all of it. So they said the pregnancy came down the second time. So the guy was hoping that they would travel out. So they were working plans together. And, the guy had visions of traveling. So this was the reason why she actually settled with this guy, because he had plans. And the lady's agenda was, okay, to travel out. Meanwhile, the other guy that she left, she was involved in an association where she was doing sign language. So they were looking for somebody over there to, interpret outside Nigeria. So she had already submitted at this thing. So she already planned with this guy and helped this guy to also submit, meaning that they were already intending and planning marriage before the guy said he was not doing it again. So she was already hoping for a future. In fact, they already planned a lot of things together before this guy came and said, okay, that he's not interested again. So the same thing happened. That was the same opportunity she saw in this second guy that made her feel like, okay, this is home. Let me go ahead with this guy. He also has plans to travel. Her agenda is to travel. One of her big aim is to travel out, use the opportunities and the abilities that she had, to make ends meet over there and all of it like that. In all of this, she fell into pregnancy again. I mean, became pregnant again. And at this point, the guy came back and said that they were scammed. All the money that she made, all the money she has made, the guy, everything, they got scammed. So there was nothing realistic of traveling again. This guy now became a vampire to her. This guy became a vampire, speaking violently to her, sleeping outside, he drinks. This is the person that feels like he was a Christian before. Both of them were rappelling, and it feels like he was just a Christian, but she was not just paying attention to him. While they were on campus, this guy was looking like it. But now the guy drinks. He does a whole lot of things. Now, because this lady is pregnant, they already moved in together. They were already living together. Because of the frustration of the things that has happened in time past. All of this came together and she put all of this up. So she and this guy started living together. Now, this guy is a vampire, he's a beast. He literally doesn't stay at home again. He literally brings other women home. And this lady, because of the gift of God upon her life, she still sees, and she has accepted her mistake, and she's looking for who to hear her out, but nobody's hearing her out again. Everybody's blaming her that why did you slip out like that? Why did you mess up? Why did you live your life? Why did you become so vulnerable? So all of these things that they were blaming her kept hitting more on her and make her stay there, like, okay, let me stay in this marriage, let me stay in this thing. The guy has not paid he has not done the real thing. But because he wanted to travel that time, the guy went to court and they did court wedding. So they had legal access, legal seal that they were married. But he has not gone to the parents. Of course, the parents, they've not paid dowry. They've not done anything. So at this point now, this girl is stuck. She does not know what to do. So guys, this is where you comment. What can she do? What do you think went wrong? What do you think do you think anything can still come out of this lady? Yeah, we've spoken, but I want to hear from you, and so that some of us can learn here that sometimes you don't respond to pressure with pressure. You don't respond to pressure with pressure. Sometimes you need to take a deep breath, relax. The Bible say that ori bibe kologun ori fifo. You don't cut off your head because you're having an headache. No, you don't. So I want to hear from us. I want to read from you. I want to read your comment. What do you think? Is it right for people to blame her? Was it really her fault that she messed the whole journey up? Was it her fault? Is she to be blamed? And what do we think can be done in this whole scenario? I can't wait to read your comments. I'm sitting in the comment section right now. Yes, we're still going to come back to address all of this, the mistakes, but I want to read from you. I want to hear what happened. Let's advise a sister. Let's talk to a sister. Thank you very much. Waiting for you in the comment section.